abortion, what abortion really is. He's a really funny guy, a very, very talented writer, very talented comedian, and if you don't mind the language and the fact that he's playing this bad guy, I really recommend it. Anthony Justin Like Fire and the Maternity Ward on Netflix. Tomorrow, the mailbag. Be there. Go on dailywire.com, subscribe, hit the podcast button, hit the Andrew Klavan podcast, hit the mailbag, ask me your questions. I will answer them. Your life will be changed forever. You'll never be able to get back even to the state you're in now. I'm Andrew Klavan. This is the Andrew Klavan Show. The Andrew Klavan Show is produced by Robert Sterling, executive producer Jeremy Bourne, senior producer Jonathan Hay. Our supervising producer is Mathis Glover, and our technical producer is Austin Stevens. Edited by Adam Sayevitz. Audio is mixed by Mike Cormina. Hair and makeup is by Jesua Alvera, and our animations are by Cynthia Angulo. Production assistant Nick Sheehan. The Andrew Klavan Show is a Daily Wire production. Copyright Daily Wire 2019.
I'm Michael Knowles, host of The Michael Knowles Show. President Trump ratchets up trade talks with China. We will examine the case for tariffs, and we'll see how that turns out. Then Pete Buttigieg goes after President Trump's marriage because Pete Buttigieg is a big jerk. Check it all out at dailywire.com.
Celebrities dress up for the Met Gala. Desperate Democrats seek a scandal, and Joe Biden dominates the polls. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. Get prepared for the meanest episode of The Ben Shapiro Show in history, which is saying a lot, because I have some comments on the Met Gala, like a lot of them. And they're actually, there's some depth. I don't want to oversell this thing. It's going to be good. But first, in quarter one, gold purchases by central banks were the highest in 6 years. In the face of the dollar's declining stature, what are you doing to protect your savings? Become your own central bank. Move some of your savings to gold. Help you protect those savings. Can you afford another hit to your retirement like the last downturn when the S&P dropped 50%? One of the ways to hedge against inflation and uncertainty and instability is with precious metals. Gold is a safe haven against uncertainty. My savings plan is diversified, and yours should be as well. The company I trust with precious metal purchases is Birch Gold Group. Right now, thanks to a little-known IRS tax law, you can even move your IRA or eligible 401k into an IRA backed by physical gold and silver, which is perfect for people who want to protect their hard-earned retirement savings from future geopolitical uncertainty. Look back historically. When the bottom falls out of everything else, gold tends to safeguard savings. I'm not saying you should take all of your money and put it in gold. I'm saying take some of it, diversify. Birch Gold Group has thousands of satisfied customers, countless 5-star reviews, and A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Contact Birch Gold Group. Get a free information kit on physical precious metals. See if diversifying into gold and silver makes sense for you. This comprehensive 16-page kit reveals how gold and silver can protect your savings, how you can legally move that IRA or 401k out of stocks and bonds into a precious metals IRA if that's something you're interested in. To get that no-cost, no-obligation kit, text BEN to 474747. Again, text BEN, my name, to 474747 for that free comprehensive kit. Go check it out right now. Text BEN to 474747. Alrighty, so last night was such an exciting evening in the arts, an incredibly exciting evening in the arts when everyone dresses up like a dope and goes over to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It's amazing. The Metropolitan Museum of Art's Costume Institute has a fundraiser every year where basically they somehow get all these celebrities to dress like fools and show up. And everybody oohs and ahs at the ridiculous and bizarre outfits that these celebrities wear. Nothing smacks more of the Hunger Games capital fashion than the Metropolitan Museum of Art Gala. And there's something deeply unsettling about the richest socialists among us spending presumably hundreds of thousands of dollars to create some of the ugliest crap ever put on a human face or body, and then strolling into a paparazzi-strewn room to show off these hideous outfits, all because they are so much better than you are. They're so much better than they're so much better than everyone. This is what taste is. Now, this year was particularly ridiculous because the theme, every year they have a theme at the Metropolitan Museum of Art Costume Institute. This year's theme was Camp, Notes on Fashion, which is a play on writer Susan Sontag's seminal essay, Notes on Camp, which I'll get to in just a second. In 1964, according to NBC News, Sontag tried to make sense of the notoriously hard-to-define aesthetic in her bullet-pointed treatise by saying camp is love of the unnatural, of artifice and exaggeration. Camp, she laid out, sees everything in quotation marks and is something of a private code, a badge of identity. Camp is often over the top, gaudy, extreme, and playful. If all of this makes you want to go full French Revolution and start executing the aristos, well, you're not alone. This is the sort of stuff where you wonder about the culture gap in the United States. This would be it. And the reason that this would be it is because the very notion of camp was designed as a way for supposedly highbrow metropolitan people to sneer at the rest of America. That's what camp was originally. And it still feels that way. It's why a normal person looks at these costumes and thinks these people look like idiots. And yet everyone in the art's like, wow, it's just gorgeous. It's incredible. You feel like you're being gaslit. You feel like you're being gaslit because this stuff is not just hideous, it's stupid looking, and it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. And these same people are complaining about kids who are starving and healthcare that doesn't cover everyone while they stroll around in hundreds of thousands of dollars of outfits that aren't even pretty. Like this isn't even a fashion that anyone would ever wear, right? None of this stuff is fashion anybody would ever wear. All of this is just a playful sense of irony. Now, I am not a big fan of irony, of cynicism in politics, in art. I find it off-putting. Not only do I find it off-putting, I find it degrading. Because in your life, if you live your life in ironical fashion, if you live your life sneering at everyone who is trying to be sincere, you're going to make yourself pretty hated pretty quickly. Most people are trying to lead a sincere life. Most people are trying to lead an authentic life where they believe the things they believe and then live for those things. Most people are trying to better themselves. Most people are trying to increase their status in the world, play by the rules. What irony does, unfortunately, just as a psychological trait, what irony tends to do is downgrade all of that. The more sincere you are, the easier it is to make fun of you. And this is why you will see those in the arts mocking honest art, mocking the stuff they think is too simple, too innocent. Instead, we have to sneer at it. Fred Siegel has a great book called The Revolt Against the Masses, How Liberalism Has Undermined the Middle Class. The book came out, 15 years ago. And he talked in the book about the fact that during the 1950s, a period that the American left excoriates and hates, the American movement toward greater culture was happening apace. So he talks about how in the 1950s, the public's expanding taste and increased income produced a 250% growth in the number of local symphony orchestras between 1940 and 1955. In 1955, 15 million people in the United States paid to attend Major League Baseball games. 35 million paid to attend classical music concerts. That's amazing. So more people, almost 3 times as many people, paid to attend classical music concerts as paid to attend a Major League Baseball game. The New York's Metropolitan Opera Saturday afternoon radio broadcast drew a listenership of 15 million out of an overall population of 165 million. So people were spending enormous time, enormous money trying to better themselves. Book sales doubled over the course of this period. NBC spent $500,000 in 1956 to present a 3-hour version of Richard III starring Laurence Olivier. This is precisely the same time that so many people on the left were decrying America as a cookie-cutter, middle-brow country. In 1947, there was a guy named Robert Hutchins, who was then president of the University of Chicago, and an autodidact philosopher named Mortimer Adler. They launched an effort to bring the great books of Western civilization to the people. In 1948, Hutchins and Adler drew 2,500 people to a Chicago auditorium to hear them lead a discussion of the trial of Socrates. By 1951, there were 2,500 great books discussion groups with roughly 25,000 people meeting. 50,000 Americans a year were buying collections of the writings of Plato, Aristotle, the Founding Fathers, and Hegel at prices starting at $300 and topping out at $1,200. And yet, we were told by the American left that mass culture was eating America. And this is where camp comes in. The reason that I'm reviewing this is because Notes on Camp, which is the inspiration for the Metropolitan event last night. Notes on Camp is an essay by Susan Sontag, the radical philosopher who once declared that white people were a cancer. And in 1964, in Partisan Review, which was basically a communist magazine, she wrote an essay titled Notes on Camp. The essay sent Susan Sontag's name profile into the stratosphere, but basically her entire theory was that people who were highbrow had to basically mock people who were attempting to learn more, mock people who were attempting to aspire to something better culturally. She said that camp was a rebuke to the cultural mandarins, people who were trying to spread culture. She said it allowed people to be serious about the frivolous and frivolous about the serious. In other words, highbrow people could like lowbrow things so long as they were ironical about it, so long as they looked down at everybody who's attempting to better themselves. She said that there were new aristocrats of taste. She suggested that middle-brow living could be enjoyed, but only as long as you were mocking it. That's what camp really was. In her essay, Notes on Camp, she describes camp in sort of a bullet-pointed way. She says, camp is a certain mode of aestheticism. It is one way of seeing the world as an aesthetic phenomenon. That way, the way of camp, capital C, is not in terms of beauty, but in terms of degree of artifice, of stylization. Right? It's the elevation of stuff that you find beautiful. So if you find Beethoven beautiful, Beethoven is not camp. Making fun of Beethoven is camp. Taking it to the aesthetic extreme. That's what camp is. To emphasize style is to slight content, or to introduce an attitude which is neutral with respect to content. It goes without saying that the camp sensibility is disengaged, depoliticized, or at least apolitical. In other words, content no longer matters. It's the emphasis on style that really matters. Not only is there a camp vision, said Susan Sontag, there's a camp way of looking at things. Camp is as well a quality discoverable in objects and the behavior of persons. There are campy movies, clothes, furniture, popular songs, novels, people, buildings. This distinction is important. Camp eye has the power to transform experience, but not everything can be seen as camp. It's not all in the eye of the beholder. And then she lists a bunch of things that she considers part of the canon of camp. Women's clothes of the 20s. Stag movies, seen without lust. And then the pornography, but seen without lust because you're seeing with an ironical eye, obviously. Camp taste has an affinity for certain arts rather than others. Clothes, furniture, all the elements of visual decor, for instance, make up a large part of camp. And she says there's a sense in which it is correct to say it's too good to be camp, or too important, not marginal enough. In other words, the idea of camp is to take unserious things and treat them as serious, and to take serious things and treat them as unserious. It's to mock the idea that there are standards to be upheld. That's what camp is all about. She says, pure camp is always naive. Camp, which knows itself to be camp, is usually less satisfying. If all of this makes you want to tear your hair out, and it sounds just like the intellectualization of bizarre behavior, or it sounds as though it's a way of making palatable to yourself the fact that you're mocking fellow human beings, or simply trying to engage in art, that you're mocking the sincerity of other people's belief systems, which is, by the way, what happens at the Metropolitan Museum of Art show every year. Every year there's somebody who, I remember a couple of years ago, they did a camp take on Catholicism, and they were taking all of these holy Catholic images, and then they were mocking them with camp, because they were trading something serious and using it playfully. They say, in naive or pure camp, this is Sontag, the essential element is seriousness, the seriousness that fails. Of course, not all seriousness that fails can be redeemed as camp. Only that which has the proper mixture of the exaggerated, the fantastic, the passionate, and the naive. When something is just bad, it's often because it is too mediocre in its ambition. The artist hasn't attempted to do anything really outlandish. Camp is the attempt to do something extraordinary. And she goes on into a very, very long essay in Partisan Review. There, I kid you not, 58 bullet points about camp. Her final one is the ultimate camp statement. It's good because it's awful.